This was a tragic story, so and it's
All right,
graphic.
so
We have
this
a
is, I
warning for
guess,
viewers
four
that the
white
next
cops
story
in,
is
what's
graphic.
this,
The
Mississippi,
sentencing
I
begins
think.
today for six
They
white former Mississippi
sexually assaulted
police
and beat
officers
and killed
who
two black
tortured two
men for
black
no
men last
reason.
year.
It's crazy.
They
They getting
apparently responded to a
sentenced.
call from a neighbor who
Hopefully,
complained
death
that two
penalty.
men were living with a
But
white
damn,
woman.
look at this
The
shit, man.
officers, who call themselves the
Black
Goon
lives do
Squad,
matter, no matter
assaulted the
what
men
y'all
with
say.
stun guns, sex toys, and poured liquid on them. They then forced them to shower together. One of
It's
the
crazy.
officers then shot one of the victims in the mouth in a mock execution and attempted to plant evidence in an attempt to cover up the crimes. So joining us now for more on this is Steve Barrick. He is a former prosecutor and a partner at Barrick and Associates. Thanks a lot for joining us. You are not involved in this case. We should sort of clarify, but you're here to talk about it. The details are out. The men are awaiting
That's some
sentencing, and the
sick shit,
details
for
are
real.
they're grisly.
Very
What
sick.
is expected? What's the expected sentence for this type of crime, particularly because, we're talking about this crime committed by officers?
Right. So the statute they're being prosecuted under is deprivation of rights under the color of law. So the maximum sentence actually could be as significant as the death penalty, which I wouldn't expect in this case. I think what they're realistically looking at is life in prison for these horrific crimes. So it's a very broad statute with very significant penalties. And so I think their sentence is going to be very significant.
So one of the victims is still suffering from the physical injuries they sustained in the attack. What role will that play in sentencing?
So these are all factors, Lad, under the federal sentencing guidelines. Injuries, long-lasting injuries, significance of injuries, those all play a role. So I think that this judge, I mean, these crimes in modern America, this is shocking conduct. So I expect them to get a very lengthy sentence for what happened that day. And this is not the only time. This goon squad. I mean, there are other incidents that law enforcement is looking into with these guys. So there's a lot going on here.
So it's not just that. It's not just a criminal case. The county sheriff's office is now facing a $400 million civil lawsuit as a result of the attack. How could this play out in court?
The civil case?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at here is the civil attorney is going to have to prove that there was this systemic issue within the sheriff's office regarding, lack of supervision, poor training, poor decision making in terms of hiring these folks. And I think you're going to find out that other people knew what was going on. I mean, when you're dealing with this kind of behavior, these individuals have a tendency to brag about it. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this civil case plays out over the next several months as it relates to what the hierarchy of the sheriff's department knew about what was going on.
Yeah, we've seen cases like this before where you have this specialized group of police officers that are, put in place to really deal with, high crime areas.
And oftentimes they behave in an extrajudicial manner.
Exactly, rife with abuse. All right, so could the decision by the judge set the standard for punishment for officers who use excessive force in racially motivated cases?
Yeah, I think whether it's race-based or excessive force in general, I think that what happens here and what happens in high-profile cases like this has a tendency to permeate through the country as a whole, especially the federal justice system. Remember, these laws cross state lines. So I think this could have a significant impact. And to your earlier point, Anne Marie, like we had a situation similar to this in the 90s with the Rampart Division in Los Angeles. And I